Did that work? Good morning, Andy. All right. Just going to give it a few minutes and then we can get the show on the road. Are you muted? It sounds like you're muted.
Yes, I was shouting the mic.
Okay, excellent. All right, so we've got 11 people watching. That's great. I'm just going to give it a few minutes here, and then I will start with the rules on how this whole thing works. And then as volunteers come and leave and things like that, we can just sort that out. So thanks, Andy, for coming today.
Happy to be here.
It was kind of rough because it was a holiday in the U.S., so we didn't know. I came back and I was like, oh no, we have to run this tomorrow. It's crazy. So next time, I should plan for holidays. All right, so let me have a look here. Let me go over the rules and what this is and all that good stuff. So welcome, everybody. These are the Kubernetes office hours. We're starting to run these about once a month until we figure them out. The idea is that if you're in Kubernetes, hash Kubernetes-users, or you're being stuck trying to figure out Kubernetes, that you can come to an office hours once a month and at least present your problem to the community and then see how we can help you out. We've got a panel, usually, of developers that are coming to help users. So what we'll do is we hang out in hash office-hours on Slack, and I've added that link to the YouTube description of the live stream, so you can just click through there and sign up for Slack if you're not already signed up, and then start to ask your questions. So we're in hash office-hours, and the way it works is you ask a question, and then we'll present it to our panel, and then we'll do our best to answer it for you. So some caveats here. Not all questions will be answerable. So if you have, for example, say, a really complex networking question, usually our experts can't SSH to your machines or have access to all the stuff that you're running. So generally speaking, there's only a certain set of questions that we can answer. So what we try to do is make those as generic and reusable for you as possible. So while we might not be able to debug, let's say, a worker node, the problem that you're having, because we can't actually see the logs or whatever, we should be able to kind of walk you through the steps on where you can get started, how you can, where to find the logs that you need to do that kind of debugging, that sort of stuff, and to kind of basically get you at least pointed in the right path to help you solve your problem. With that, we do ask our panel that when they do explain something to kind of give a little history or a little bit of tidbit of generic information about that part of Kubernetes, so that everybody kind of understands, okay, that person asked a question about a node, okay, this is why that is. Sometimes, like last time we had a person who helped write that feature, and kind of explain why things were that way and things like that. So the idea being is that you watch enough of these, you should start to understand how the different components of Kubernetes fit and work together. So without further ado, in the office hours, if you guys just want to go ahead and start pasting in your questions, just type question in all caps, colon, and then your question, and then we will get to them as soon as we start receiving them. So, Andy, why don't you introduce yourself real quick for those people who weren't here last time?
Sure. I'm Andy Goldstein. I'm an engineer at Heptio along with George, and I've been involved in Kubernetes development for several years. I wrote the initial implementations for kube control exec, attach, and port forward. So if you use those, the initial contribution was mine. And I've been involved with SIG-Node in the past. I'm currently more involved with API machinery. And so if you have questions about informers, shared informers, listers, code generation, and the tooling that we use to generate those things, I've been involved with that more recently. Yeah, that's about it.
Awesome. And Ilya's on his way. He had a hard time getting online, so here he comes. And someone's saying that you're pretty quiet, Andy. If you can crank up the gain on your mic, that would probably help us out. And Ilya's here, so go ahead and introduce yourself. And you're muted. Okay, we will come back to him.
Do I sound better now?
You sound good to me. Please, and let me just give me a second here to ask people on the channel to please start asking questions. So we'll just give us a minute here. There is a perceived delay here, or actual delay, between when we say stuff and then people can respond. I did change YouTube to a low latency configuration, but it doesn't support my resolution, so it's normal. But it worked decent enough for last time, as long as we're not expecting to have two-way conversations with people in the channel. So, Ilya, it sounds like you have sound now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Ilya from VWorks. Hello, everyone.
Okay, awesome. So we got two developers here. Great. I've gotten some responses of people might be dropping in and out as the hour goes by. No worries. We have enough experts here to make this happen. So now we're just kind of waiting for the questions to start coming in from Slack. And I will start to monitor Twitter as well if you have any questions that you want to send them in. And if we don't get a question here soon, I will start asking questions.
So just in case you guys wondering where I am at the conference in Amsterdam, it's a pre-conference day. We kind of rehearsing our talks today. So yeah, I'm in a slightly unusual setting here.
Or is there still, and a couple people say that Ilya and I are quiet, so I'm wondering if it's maybe something in the way that you're casting us over to YouTube Live, because I can hear Ilya just fine.
Yeah, I can hear him just fine as well. I'll go ahead and adjust sliders here while... Please keep giving me feedback on the audio. And what I'm going to do now is actually read my first question, let you guys talk, and then adjust from there. That sounds good. All right, you ready? We got our first question from A. Blanco. I'm creating Nginx ingress controller, but when it's starting appears the error creating client configuration, open env secrets, Kubernetes IO service, blah, blah, blah. Sorry. It's in the channel, so you guys can read it. No such file directory. Why? Exists a file token, CSV format, in master and minions. Please help.
So this is something that gets automatically created and mounted into your containers in your pod. So saying that it exists in the master and the nodes is a little confusing. You would have to go look inside the actual container at that path and see if it's there. And if it's not, there could be a couple reasons. We've had issues in the past in older versions of Kubernetes where for whatever reason there were like bind mounting issues or permissions issues or SE Linux issues. So there are a variety of reasons that you might be running into that. I would maybe start with like a simpler pod, like trying to do kube control run busybox and see if that particular path and file exists in a busybox pod. And if it does, then, or if it doesn't, then it's more likely a generic problem. It's going to affect everything and you'll need to try and diagnose it from there. The first log file that I would go look at would be the log file for the kubelet, because that is what's ultimately responsible for placing that file at that path. So you potentially could see some errors in the kubelet log. I don't know what distribution you're running, but if you're on something that has SE Linux enabled, you could check to see if there's any denials going on. But that's the first couple of things that I would go look at.
Yeah, and I mean, I would also add to this. It's also the question of whether you're doing something that is supported upstream, like whether you're using kubeadm or any other tool to create your cluster and install Kubernetes in general, right? So if you installed it yourself from scratch, or if you did it the hard way, then it's kind of like the chances are maybe there was something missing in your setup.
Yeah, so there's also, if you were doing a custom install, there's an admission controller that you have to enable in the API server to actually get the service account token as an automatically mounted volume in all of your pods. So I'm assuming you probably have that by default, but that's one other thing to check as well.
And additionally to that, I kind of wonder, you said you're building Nginx controller or creating one. Is it one that you're writing from scratch, or is that one of the examples from one of the community repos? Yeah, sort of. But it sounds like it's more generic issue with the secret mount. The default. This thing is called default service account secret. That's the general problem here. That's something you have problem with, yeah, I wonder. It probably is unrelated to whether you're writing your own controller or not. But
Yeah,
I wanted to
just trying to get and Nginx rest running.
Okay, so if this helps, do let us know. If you have anything else to ask, please put that in the chat.
Yep, and it looks like he's typing a response in Slack, so we'll go ahead and wait and come around for him. We could definitely use more questions, people, in the channel if you want to go and post some. And while that's happening, I've got a quick question for the panel, of a question that I was thinking of this week. As far as workloads go on a node, when choosing like constraints as far as memory and CPU, are there any tricks as far as kick off the stream again? All right.
Oh, don't pop a reminder about office hours into the main channel.
Yeah, if you could do in the Kubernetes users channel again, that would be great, because when I type, it ruins the stream for everybody. So we're just waiting for reports if people can tell us how the stream looks like now. Went ahead and bumped down the quality, so maybe that will help. And YouTube is telling me that the stream is green and live. We'll just give it a few seconds there to get some confirmation from our listeners. And then we'll continue. Ilya, if you can mute when you're not talking, that would help. Yep, thanks. Still buffering occasionally. Okay. Let me just change the settings here. Let's get down to 2000. All right. Let's just see what's happening here. I'm going to try to see if I can add like an artificial 5-second buffer or something like that to make it. Let's see. Any other feedback from listeners? Is this still buffering? The YouTube option is showing me red, so let me go ahead and I'm going to keep bumping down the video quality until hopefully the error goes away. see if changing my encoding settings help. All right, it's working good for one person.
Okay, that's good. Hey, Joe, do you see YouTube questions?
No, we shut the YouTube chat off and then sent everyone to the Slack channel. Yep. All right, it's working good for one person. If we can get a confirmation, we'll just continue. We'll try to power through here.
For Twitter questions, did you ask people to just tweet at us, at you, or?
Yeah, hold on. It's hard to monitor all these things at once and run the stream.
Memory question to re-answer, and then there's another one in Slack about user permissions.
Sure. Okay. All right. I see that one. So, let's see. All right. It looks like we've got 2 people saying that the stream is good. Let's just power through then and see what we can do here. Why don't you guys turn your video off, perhaps, and then see if that kind of helps with the latency. All right. Here we go. Question: is there a recommended way to handle user permissions within Kubernetes? More specifically, owners of processes, service log file owners, and data owners. Or more generally, can you shed some light on what to look out for regarding that aspect when running a service that writes data to disks as a Kubernetes pod? And Ilya, if you can mute, that'd be great. We're getting coffee shop noises. All right.
So when you run a pod and it's running containers, the process or processes that are run in the containers are going to be using whatever user is defined in the Docker file for the image or images that you're running. However, I'm 99% certain you can override that with by setting the user ID in your pod specifically for each container. Don't quote me on that because I haven't gone and looked back at the type stuff for that, but I'm pretty sure that's in there. So basically, you're going to be running as whatever the Docker file says, unless you override it. And it really sort of depends on what sort of issues you might run into, because generally your containers are meant to run isolated and ideally not interacting with other containers on the system unless that's your intent. So if you've got a pod and it's got one container in it and you've got another pod that has a different container in it, those 2 pods are not going to be able to reach into each other's file systems. So I don't know if this answers the question, but my advice is basically know what's in your Docker files of the images that are running, and if you want to change things, you can override the command and the arguments that are running. You can, I believe, override the user. So that should, I believe that's pretty much all you can do in that regard.
Okay, and if you have a follow-up, please go ahead and post it. While we're waiting for more questions, just to encourage everyone who's started to join us, please keep posting your questions in #officehours, and we'll get to them. The stream was giving us some problems when I asked this question, so I'm just going to re-ask it and ask you guys to just go ahead and restate your answers. So the question was, I have a friend who's doing a lot of Java workloads on Kubernetes, and he had a question on how to figure out exactly how to determine the limits for his CPU and memory based on, Java does like garbage collection and things like that. And are there any gotchas or any recommendations as far as figuring out how to allocate resources based on the workload that's running in a pod or a node?
Yeah, so there's one key thing to this, something that not everybody knows at present, right? I think as of some of the recent patch levels of Java 8, you get an experimental flag that allows JVM to read its memory settings from the C group. And I can look up the exact set of flags you want to enable to get that. And I'll post that on Slack shortly. And that's one thing that a lot of people don't know. And it's fairly recent, right? Until recently, there was even a myth that Java doesn't quite work in Docker, and that's completely untrue. it just was a little tricky to get some of the memory settings correct for the JVM. And I believe this functionality is going to land in Java 9 as GA and not experimental. I'm not entirely sure if they will enable it by default, but yeah, there are some articles on Oracle blog that I've seen that talk about this. So there's that, and then once you enable this, then JVM, yes, will pick up whatever your C group settings are, and then from there it will use those. So all you have to do is get your C group limits right, and that's something you don't have to do any calculations there, other than what an estimate of what your app will be using.
And I would add one more thing. You could, if you did want to try and do some calculations, you could use the downward API to project the memory limit and request as environment variables or files into your containers, and then you could have an entry point script that looks at that information and sets the min and max heap however you determine makes the most sense.
A typical thing that I've seen people do too over time, because Kubernetes doesn't have a hunting policy, which means like bounce and attenuate. One thing that you could do is you could have a watcher sidecar, or you could have monitoring of your workloads and adjust over time. And this is something that other expert systems do that watch the workloads on their cluster. Eventually, when there's vertical pod auto resizing, this might affect this, but that's been a long tail feature that not everybody has been too keen to implement because it gets pretty complicated.
And for everybody else, can you just explain just like real quick what vertical pod scaling, what you mean by that?
It means resizing the limits on the fly based upon your workload. And usually this is done in expert systems where you have predictive analysis of your workload. So you have a bunch of history that allows you to predict with reasonable certainty that you will scale up or scale down your usage. And vertical pod autoscaler is more of a coarse-grained type of way of dealing with this to basically prevent you from hitting your limits or being killed.
Right, that was one of my common mistakes. Also, kill your video. We're having some stream issues. But
oh, sure.
Oh, after you introduce yourself real quick.
Hi, I'm Tim St. Clair from Heptio, and I work along with George and Andy.
Yeah, so I feel like one of the first mistakes I made when I was learning is not setting limits on anything. And then things would get killed when things got busy, and I would never understand why that is. So I'm really glad that work is going into that. Okay, anybody else have anything to add to the George's Java question before we move on? Okay, next is from Ciron. I have a cluster set up with kubeadmin using NetWeave as CNI. Now I have some pods running on the host IP, like the Kube API server proxy and so on, and they work fine. My own pods are running with an IP of 10.32.0.0/12, the default of Weave, and those containers don't have internet access. Any suggestions on how to solve that?
Okay, sounds like the lead question that I should take.
Yep, pretty much a Weave question.
Yeah, let me just reread this. Okay, so right, so you are basically saying that your pods are not able to access internet. I wonder whether you've tried to enable. Yeah, I mean, this could happen if you create a network policy of any sort. So if you were playing around with network policy and then maybe stop doing so, that could have triggered this kind of behavior. So if you could please verify whether in the process of creating this cluster you've created any network policy objects or not. So one of the things you could do is do kubectl get all -- all namespaces, network policy. If that's not the case, we will have to debug this further.
Okay, no worries, and we'll see if he posts a follow-up. Moving on, Tanketov, I hope I pronounced that correctly, asks, when certificate date limits expires, what do I do? What's the best way to extend or change the certificates? And he means these certificates in Etsy/Kubernetes/PKI. Does anyone want to take this?
Tim, are you familiar with those? Are those for the API server and whatnot? I don't know, is that a kubeatom install or?
I believe, I don't know what the date limit for the expiration for the keys that are created are set to, but I believe they're set really high. And then when you update, you can refresh. I'm not exactly certain on this. I should actually double check with Lucas.
Yeah, I think we need some more information, and we'll see if we can get that kubeatom. Okay, so maybe we'll take that as a follow-up. Try and answer after.
Okie dokie. So he did install with kubeadm, so that's good. Moving on, let me see. Hello, I'm a pure rookie wanting to set up a Kubernetes cluster. That will be huge on medium term. On VMware ESX hypervisor. Which OS is the best solution for my use case? Finally, an operating system fight. Do you each want to give a recommendation, or does anyone have really strong opinions on this?
I think kubeadm supports all the major distros now. So it's a dealer's choice of what features you're looking for and what you want in an operating system, right? Some people like the immutability of a cloud-based operating system, where you're operating in the cloud and you don't want anything to change. That's where CoreOS or one of the Atomics works well. If you're looking for traditional because you're your Ubuntu shop or whatever, it supports Ubuntu too. I think it's all based upon the requirements of your environment, really.
Mm-hmm. Andy, any strong opinions either way?
I would echo that using kubeadm is the avenue I would recommend. So whatever it currently supports, as Tim mentioned, I personally have been using Fedora, CentOS, RHEL for years, just based on my previous employment history. So I'm very familiar with that, and it's like a personal comfort. But Debian certainly works fine. Basically whatever kubeadm supports.
Yeah, I was just going to add, my previous employment had me on the Ubuntu side of the house, so I've actually been stepping out of my comfort space to try different OSs. And any OS that supports kubeadmin is pretty much almost exactly the same. I've not quite yet decided whether it's good or bad for me if moving over to something like an Atomic or a CoreOS is right for me. But there's definitely options there. I think the way I'm going to answer the OS question from now on is basically all the major ones are supported by kubeadmin. So if you're doing this at work, use the same OS that you're going to be already using, whatever part of your platform is. I don't think there's a reason for you to change something that you're not familiar with. Even though once you install Kubernetes, you're not really interacting with the host that much. But I don't know. That's just me. I'm definitely having a lot of fun playing with different operating systems. So let's see. Still waiting for more questions. Let me just check to see if I missed any. Let's see. Ilya's helping the gentleman with the weave problem. And the stream looks pretty healthy so far. So we are currently up and running, and we got about 25 minutes left. So if we have any questions, that would be really great. And just waiting to see people type the questions.
Okay, thank you again.
All right, people are typing, so we're just waiting for the questions to come in. All right, here we go. Slavic asks, is it possible to have stateful set IPs statically assigned?
I don't know the answer to that.
The name is consistent, and they're not statically as in pre-allocated, but they are consistent once they've been assigned, and they are properly numbered or ordered.
All right, he's typing a response here. We could definitely use more questions from the channel if you have any. So it looks like multiple people are typing responses. Is there anything cool that you want to talk about? Maybe some neat things you guys have been working on in the past week that might be useful for users?
I've picked up on my Kubeplay project, which is a REPL-style replacement for command line client type stuff, right? So if you're kind of a bit tired of kubectl, you can try Kubeplay. It's very experimental. It's a personal project. Yeah, it uses Ruby as a kind of syntax, but like other than that, it's fairly straightforward thing to use. If you don't want to type kubectl get pods -- all namespaces or whatnot, in Kubeplay, you just type pods and get a list of pods, and you can save that to a variable and do various things with that. I'd like to hear people's feedback on that. So do hit me up if you have any thoughts on this one.
Yeah, please toss that URL in the Slack channel so we can check it out. I'm always looking for alternate means of poking at things. All right, so Slavic responds back with, Zookeeper Java has a bug. Client has a bug. If the Zookeeper server IP changes, client has to be restarted. It's unlikely that bug will be resolved anytime soon. Other than forking Zookeeper or changing design to remove Zookeeper, was thinking to temporarily work around the issue by statically assigning the IP to Zookeeper cluster members, managed as a stateful set in Kubernetes.
There are examples for this that exist already. I can post them in the Slack channel. There's well-defined sets of examples that bring up Zookeeper in a predefined configuration. So why don't I post those?
Sure.
I even gave a talk on this, and I have slides for this exact example. So
that would be great. Just toss those in the channel, and Slavic, let us know how that works out for you. That'd be great. Emil Holland follows up with, question, when using a kubeadmin cluster running authorization mode equals always allow, is it possible to add additional nodes using kubeadmin join? In the past, I've tried this, but it always hangs during the join stage. Sorry if this question is vague.
that just requires a restart of the system control daemon. I think there's an ordering on some distributions of how it gets started up. Mm-hmm. So you just need to restart the kubelet if you get a hang and a join. That's usually the answer.
Mm-hmm. Oops, sorry. Alrighty, if you have a follow-up for that one, Aaron, that would be great. And Ilya's posted a link to his cube play in the Slack channel if you want to give that a shot. It looks very interesting. More questions, please. We're going to start to wrap it up here in the next 10 or 15 minutes. How about Tim or Andy? You guys been working on anything interesting while we wait for questions?
On vacation. So.
Yeah, me too.
We're just making some updates to Sonobui, which is useful for post-cluster stand-up validation. So if you're doing an upgrade or if you're doing a initial cluster stand-up, Sonobui is a tool we can use, or you can use for validating your clusters all good. There's a web page for that. I can also link that in the channel. But we're making updates to it to basically have a better format, as well as getting ready for the 1.8 release cycle too. And we're doing validation there.
Mm-hmm. So Aaron says with a follow-up, when I restart the kubelet, will the node hosting my pods go down too? I've currently only got one master, one node. Sadly, no H8 yet.
I'm a little flummoxed by the question. Maybe it caused me to. When I restart the kubelet, will the node hosting my pods go down too? No. If you just do a system control restart, the pods will remain running. If that's the question he's asking.
Yeah, it sounds like this is a follow-up to this one about doing the kubeadmin join.
The kubelet is resilient to restarts. So if you do a hard system control restart, the containers are all running and the IP tables rules are all still pre-configured. So nothing actually goes down. And when the kubelet restarts, it will detect that those things are currently running.
Okay. Awesome. And he's typing in a follow-in. Meanwhile, Anwar Khan asks, how can we add a user to the Kubernetes UI dashboard? Any thoughts on this one?
I've not used it before, so I don't know.
Yeah, does the dashboard have
some
separate
limitations there? Right? There were some limitations, I thought.
Does the dashboard have a different set of users from everything else, or?
I remember there was a thing of like basic oath being the only way to get into dashboard.
Okay.
Or dashboard had to have basic oath enabled so you could talk to the cluster or something like that.
Okay. All right. Well,
I'm not entirely sure. Yeah.
I'm gonna write that one down. I think that
Yeah.
I think that's something that we can get an answer from you once we have more of a control panel expert here. So sorry about that. We'll have to answer that question next time for you. Let's see. Did I miss any questions here? It feels like the internet gods are with us because the stream health has definitely been rock solid the past 20 minutes or so. Because our viewer rate keeps going up, so that's good. Yeah, no worries. Thanks to you. Thanks for coming. Sorry we couldn't answer your question, but we'll get to it as soon as we get a dashboard person. Probably next time, so keep an eye out for that.
I guess while we're waiting for potentially more questions, I'll say that Kubernetes 1.8 is coming into the home stretch right now. So we've entered into code freeze and are trying to shore up the code base to make sure that everything's working great. So if you guys have some spare computing resources, we would definitely appreciate you trying out the alphas and betas that are out there for 1.8. And certainly please file any bugs if you find them, or go into the various Slack channels and ask questions if you're running into issues. But that is going to be coming out fairly soon. I can check the actual date because I don't know it off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm. And the kubeadmin upgrade is now behind a feature flag, so I can, right?
Yay! Yay!
Right. So for those of you who don't know, you can now do an upgrade with kubeadmin. So I believe it's kubeadmin alpha and then type help. I think it's alpha upgrade, but I don't want to go on the record to say that. But the flags, the command line flags and everything for kubeadmin are complete, so I always just look them up on the CLI. Have any of you actually gone through a kubeadmin upgrade yet? Or
Not yet, no. Really looking forward to try it soon.
yeah, likewise.
Once I get the RCs in place, I'm gonna beat on it a lot more.
Yeah.
I just don't have the time right now.
Right.
Although I reviewed like 3/4 of the code that went into that,
Mm.
I haven't had much time to actually tinker with it.
Really interesting. I've done the whole server in the back room, one node of Kubernetes via kubeadmin, to kind of learn how to throw things on it, and then every week or so I tear it down and I rebuild it just so I can, feel comfortable rebuilding it. So we're starting to run out of time, so maybe one or two more questions there. And then we will be done. And then anyone have any ideas for next month's office hours? We could do one at the end of this month or the beginning of October. I'm starting to lean towards doing a U.S. West Coast friendly one so that we can snag some of the West Coast volunteers that would like to help during office hours.
It's probably a good idea. Plus,
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit more promotion.
Yeah, so it was tough with the holiday, and I'm obviously looking for help for more promotion here to get more users and things like that. I'm posting in the obvious places like the subreddit, Twitter, and stuff, but I'm starting to think that... Oh, Ilya, can you mute? I'm starting to think that we should just basically spam the world the week before to get more.
I'm happy to get in touch with some of the meetup organizers who
Yeah.
post this.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Clayton had an idea that we should maybe consider start doing more focused, like this office hours will be about storage, for example, or this one will be about API server. At some point, Andy might have to answer an API server question. So
That sounds fairly reasonable to me, given that volunteers cannot turn up to every call.
yeah,
They can spare an hour once in a month or something, or once in 2 months, and get those storage questions.
Yep. All right, so we'll do a last call for questions, and give it another 1 or 2 minutes, and then we shall be done. So if you have any questions, please post them in the Slack channel. We are almost ready. All right, and it looks like we're not going to have any more questions for the rest of the session. So thanks to our panel, Ilya, Andy, and Tim for stopping by. I will go ahead and post the next date next month at some point. The more we stream, the more data we get about how reliable the stream is. So sorry about the issue there 15 minutes in. But my YouTube analytics are now filled with a whole bunch of information I need to dig through. So the more information you give us about the quality of the audio, the quality of the video, the better decisions we can make as far as encoding and whatnot. So we really appreciate that. So with that, thank you very much. We'll go ahead and stop the stream now, and we'll see everybody next month. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, everyone. Bye bye. See you soon.